Today I'm discussing 5 things that creep up on me that I have found at times hold me back in my pursuit of prolific artistic output through my photography. I've identified some of these things holding me back, and I'm presenting them conceptually to you as potential things that might be holding you back in your journey as a photographer or as an artist or whatever it is that we're all working towards. Thing number 1 is not understanding the difference between what you like or what you appreciate in someone else's work and what reflects you and what you want to present as your work. This photo over here is not mine, but I really like it. I love it even. This is a photographer called Jenny Frisson, who I believe is more in the comic book space, but regardless, I take pleasure in seeing this photography. I love how his shadows are protected and lifted, and I love the blues, the greens, the pinks from his images, especially when I see them in a grid form or as a collage form. I have contemplated going out to make an effort to take similar photos as the ones that I see here, but I just haven't brought myself to do it because I realize it doesn't reflect or it doesn't resonate with me and how I choose to present my work. I'm more of a rich and deep shadow person. Now, would I hang this person's art up on my walls? Yes, but as things are right now, I wouldn't want to produce work of that aesthetic, and knowing this, understanding this, helps me maintain a sense of focus and direction in my work. I've managed to identify that I don't need to make images like this to love images like this. And having this understanding yourself for your own work could help you distinguish between projects that will add to your development as an artist and projects that might be more of a distraction. And this could also be useful for you as an artist to steer away from trends and stuff like that. It's not that this work here that I've just shown you is a trend, it is a clear style, but my train of thinking on the matter applies to both. And this isn't me saying that you need to have a style. In short, I think it can help keep you intentional in your photographic work. And this nicely merges us into thing number 2, which is not having a plan. Because I think that not having a plan can contribute to not shooting with intention. Do you always need to shoot with intention? No, but we do eventually get to a place in our photography where the broad experimentation is done. And now it's time to hone in and focus on what we are going to put out there as our professional work, as our work. And I'm not talking about Instagram. I mean where your work professionally lives, what makes it to your portfolio. For me, that's my website, that's my print work, and that's dedicated apps. For example, currently I'm testing out the photo app. Your plans do change as you progress as a photographer. Now, using myself as an example, my plans fall within my goals. When I first started out, my big goal was I'm going to get really good at photography and people will pay me to take their portraits because they appreciate the work that I have produced. Now, that's the long-term goal. But to get to your long-term goal, you want to establish short-term goals. And these short-term goals are accomplished via planning, which is why my thing number 2 is that holds me back is not having a plan, or more specifically put, ignoring my plan or for just forgetting it by allowing myself to get distracted. So back when I started, my short-term goals included taking photos to learn so I can get good. The plan for that was to take photos every day. As I examined my photos, I started to understand what it was that I was doing wrong, and this led me to more specific short-term goals that were accomplished by more specific planning. And it was all quite dynamic and a non-rigid progression, which is why the potential to get distracted was so strong. But understanding what my segments of short-term goals were helped me to keep in touch with my plans. So back then, I now realized what was wrong in my photos that I was not liking. My highlights were making the photo just feel off. What plans did I need to put in place the next time that go out to shoot with my camera? Even as a beginner, running around and shooting everything and anything with a main long-term goal and some short-term goals in mind, there was direction achieved through planning. Even if you don't quite understand your goals, you can have plans for the day and for the next segment of your photography. And through planning, you can organically identify your goals. So for example, in my case, I would like to get my work into a gallery or an exhibition one day. And this I would consider an overarching goal. And I almost always have this in mind when I'm out with my digital camera. And this often means that I come home with 1 or even 0 photos in my memory card. Why? Because I didn't feel that anything that I was immersed in at that time would make it to my portfolio. Now keep in mind, I'm not discussing photos for memories or photos that I'm taking to test out a lens or film testing a newly fixed camera. That's different. This is in terms of art progression. The act of having plans, the act of remembering my goals has resulted in me taking tens of thousands of photos of hundreds of different bunches of different things. But even when taking a photo of a flower or a building, two things that are subjectively or conceptually separate from photographing people, portraits. Knowing my goals and sticking to my plans on better understanding shadow and light, quality of shadow and quality of light over the thousands of photos, though experimental, I have kept intentional and focused. So then back then, for example, I was photographing people like this. This is Julia. This is the first photo of a person I took with an intention to be a portrait photographer. And now I can, with no difficulty, take a photo like this. The colorful portraits are not for anyone. I totally understand that. But the point is that you can tell that there is a clear difference in skill between the two photos. So identify your goals, figure out your plans, and give yourself a sense of direction in your photography. And I think that not having plans leads us nicely into thing number 3. It's one thing to have goals. It's one thing to have plans. And I often compartmentalize my plans and my goals into projects. But thing number 3 holding me back is leaving too many projects and ideas unexplored or undernourished. The backlog, the one that's in the head. Now, this is a huge one for me, to the point that I can fall victim to my own self-induced mental fog, which is why plans, my point number 2, are so important. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to have a backlog of ideas. If anything, I think it can be positive. But I think problems arise when these ideas go ignored, because the idea of the idea will creep up on you and start to annoy and distract you. So my suggestion for dealing with this is writing your ideas down, and don't neglect to work on these ideas. Keeping track of your latest ideas will help you feel in control. I often have friends asking me what I'm currently working on, and I sometimes find myself unable to answer because I can't remember, because there's so much clutter in my head, because I have so many ideas that I don't even remember what I am currently working on. Dedicating time to nourish and build on your ideas and your projects, and having a clear idea of which projects are taking priority will help you keep on top of what is happening with your photography. And it will help you more confidently answer the question, what are you working on right now? So I used to get this thing where I'd wake up and pretty much forget what my direction was, forget any sense of having a plan, and that had me losing motivation. But what has been helping me keep the discipline factor up to override the need for motivation is to have a good idea on where I am for each project or for each idea. And this can also apply to things that you need to get done. I recently allowed myself to have a backlog of unscanned negatives that I needed to tackle. So anything that I did related to photography was kind of fogged over by the knowledge that I had these negatives that I needed to scan, post-process, and catalog. So I wrote it down on my post-it, put it on the wall, and that was my focus for the next 3 photographic days. 13 rolls of film that released a lot of fog that I had clouding other things that I should have been focusing on. So my advice to you, if the fog starts to hit, sit down, get a piece of paper or a notebook or your digital board and work on it. Because when you're working on it, you're providing a sense of direction in your work, and hopefully a sense of direction in your progress as a photographer. You don't need to complete it, you just need to nourish it and all your other ideas. So my general advice for this one is to get the idea from your head to either paper or to a digital space where you can outline your ideas and nourish them from there. I generally use my notebook, and once I have a scope fairly understood, I get this to my digital board where I start typing my plans out. And once I've been photographing and getting the ball rolling and fleshing out the project, I can then move the idea from being an idea to an active project. So for me, this is usually a YouTube video or a photography project. And once the idea becomes a project that I'm working on, it becomes a post-it on my wall. And in that way, once I'm finished for the day, I can leave the office and take a quick look at the post-its and visualize and kind of just have a reminder of what I have going on. And this provides clarity and a direction to focus on. But what if you don't have ideas? What if you don't know what to photograph? Or what if you don't have a developing idea? And I think that the feeling that there is a lack of ideas or a lack of things to photograph comes with things number 4. Not paying attention to the world around you. And the world around you includes the simplest scenes, the moments that might be overlooked by most. But you need to understand, if you want to be a photographer, you will benefit from seeing the world as a photographer. And that's not only when you have the camera in your hand. You need to learn to see all of that. The more you train yourself to observe the world, the more natural it will become to see the world photographically or as a photographer, and the easier it will become to take advantage of the photographic opportunities that most people would otherwise miss. See the light and how it frizzles into a shadow. See that green thing and how it beautifully complements that other red thing next to it. You don't always have to photograph it, but you can mentally capture it and save it as inspiration, and that could turn into an idea down the line. Now, thing number 5 is not necessarily, where am I in my notes? Thing number 5 is not necessarily a thing that we do or that we don't do. It's conceptually great, but its pursuit can be crippling, and that is the idea of perfection. So thing number 5 is perfection. Perfection, point A. You don't always need to produce a perfect photo. Some of my favorite photos are practically flawed and lack perfection in the purest sense or in the theoretical sense. Now, this isn't something that I can really school you on for your photography, because only you have a feel for your photography, and the key word is feel. If the photo feels right despite the compositional incorrectness or the missed focus or perhaps a clipped highlight, if it fits your artistic vision, then roll with it and commit. Perfection, point B. I do believe that some photographic styles need to be close to perfect. Sometimes the clipped highlights will distract from your image, regardless of how artistic you might deem it to be. If an error in composition means that your vision for the artistic feeling is compromised, you might want to throw in the towel, pick up your camera, and try again. The more selective you are, the more strict you are while you're figuring things out, the more likely you'll be to get your photos close to your vision or as close to your vision the first go next time you try it. Perfection, point C. Minor perfectionistic details have the potential to hold back your productivity. Now, this is something that I struggled with a lot back in the day, usually with shadow treatment. And my top advice for that is not allowing yourself to get sucked into the minor thing or a minor thing. Know when to take a step back. Even if it's just for 10 minutes, when you get back to it, take a look from a distance or even squint your eyes. You'll find that once you've taken a step back or stepped away from it, you will know what to do from there to get the balance that you require from your image. Don't spend hours on one small aspect of your image. If it gets to that point, you need to step away. All right, all of these points are to be taken with a grain of salt. We are all at different places in our photographic and artistic journeys. My thoughts on these topics might change over time, and this whole thing of art and photography is not a one size fits all. But with that said, I do hope that you got something from at least one or two of the points that I mentioned. There is so much more to this topic, and these were just the points that stood out for me today. So let me know if there are some points that perhaps I've forgotten, or others that you'd like for me to discuss in a future video. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here, folks. I hope you got something from this video. Don't forget to keep taking photos, keep making videos, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.